Tien định đi xe máy đi không?
Có nha.
Bây giờ anh đưa Tử Tiên đi uống nước đã, xong rồi mình quay về đây luôn.
Mà Tử Tiên đừng suy nghĩ nhiều nhá. Mấy em nữa mình sẽ sắp xếp công việc rồi mình đi khám lại. Mà cũng đã đến lịch rồi đấy Tử Tiên ạ. Thực ra anh cũng chẳng mong gì cao sang. Anh chỉ mong là muốn em được luôn vui vẻ, hạnh phúc bên anh. Cũng như mẹ anh cũng vậy. Nên em bớt suy nghĩ nhé.
The morning sun cast a golden glow through the bamboo blinds of a quaint cafe nestled in a quiet corner of the village, its warm rays dancing across the wooden tables where Jack, a young engineer with a thoughtful demeanor, sat across from Uncle Dung, a man whose rugged features told tales of years spent under the sun on construction sites. The air was rich with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, mingling with the faint scent of jasmine drifting in from the garden just outside the open window, where vibrant flowers swayed gently in the breeze. Jack adjusted his cap, a habit from his days on the work site, and greeted the older man with a respectful nod, his voice carrying the warmth of familiarity. "Good morning, Uncle. How are you today?" Uncle Dung, sipping a glass of water, smiled warmly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Morning, Jack. I'm doing well, thanks for asking. Come, sit down, make yourself comfortable." Jack settled into the chair, his gaze sweeping the room. The walls were adorned with framed photos of rural landscapes, lush fields, workers in hard hats, and bridges spanning rivers, reminders of the life he once lived alongside Uncle Dung. He turned to the waiter, a young man with a quick smile, and called out, "I'll have a salted coffee, please." The waiter nodded briskly, "Coming right up." As the waiter disappeared into the back, Jack turned back to Uncle Dung, curiosity flickering in his dark eyes. "Have you been here long, Uncle?" Uncle Dung leaned back in his chair, his voice steady and calm. "Not too long, just a little while. I came straight from the site. Thought I'd grab a quiet moment before the day gets busy." Jack nodded, the mention of the construction site stirring memories of their shared past. Long days under the scorching sun, the sound of machinery humming, and the camaraderie that had bonded them like family. "I see. So, why did you ask me to come here today?" Uncle Dung's expression grew serious, his hands resting on the table as he leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. "Well, Jack, I asked you to come here because there's something important I need to talk to you about. Something personal." Jack's curiosity deepened, his posture straightening as he sensed the gravity of the moment. "Of course, Uncle. Please go ahead." Uncle Dung took a deep breath, his eyes meeting Jack's with a mixture of nervousness and sincerity. "You see, Jack, you and I go way back. We worked together on the same construction site years ago, and I think you know the kind of man I am. During that time, I had the chance to meet your mother. Purely by coincidence, of course." Jack's brow furrowed slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "You met my mom by chance, and then?" Uncle Dung nodded, his voice softening as he continued, "I wanted to talk to you about this today. You and I have known each other for a long time, and I've always respected you. But when I met your mother, something changed. I found myself drawn to her. She's an incredible woman, Jack. I've developed feelings for her, and I wanted to be honest with you about it." The words hung in the air like the faint hum of cicadas outside, a quiet intensity settling over the table. Jack froze, the confession catching him off guard, his mind racing as he processed what he'd just heard. The cafe buzzed softly around them, patrons chatting, the clink of cups, but for Jack the world narrowed to this moment. He took a deep breath, his hands resting on his lap, and spoke carefully, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "Uncle Dung, I have to say, I'm really surprised to hear this today. But I'm also..." I'm happy in a way. We've known each other for years, worked side by side, and I've always seen you as a good man. He paused, his gaze softening as he thought of his mother, her sacrifices, her strength. To me, my mom is an incredible woman. She raised me on her own, through so many hardships, and I've always cherished and respected her for that. She's given everything to make sure I had a good life. Uncle Dung listened intently, his expression one of quiet understanding. As Jack continued, his voice filled with a mix of gratitude and hope. Honestly, I've always wanted her to find someone who could be there for her, especially now that she's getting older. Not too old, but not young anymore either, you know? I want her to find a partner, someone to share happiness with in the years ahead. Jack's eyes met Uncle Dung's, a sincere smile tugging at his lips. I don't have any objections to what you've told me, Uncle. In fact, I support you and my mom being together. But of course, the final decision is hers. I can't speak for her. I just know that I've seen the kind of person you are, back when we worked together, and I respect you deeply. Uncle Dung's shoulders relaxed, a wave of relief washing over his weathered features. Thank you, Jack. Hearing you say that means a lot to me. I understand what I need to do now. Jack leaned forward, his voice firm yet warm, wanting to ensure his feelings were clear. Uncle, you know how hard my mom and I have worked to get to where we are today. She means the world to me, you understand that, right? All I want is for her to find someone who will care for her, especially as she grows older. I support you in this, so please don't overthink it. Uncle Dung's eyes glistened with gratitude, his voice soft but heartfelt. I'm truly grateful, Jack. Jack gestured to the coffee that had just arrived, its steam curling in the air. Let's drink, Uncle. You too, Jack, Uncle Dung replied, raising his glass of water. As they sipped their drinks, the tension eased and Jack's curiosity resurfaced, his mind drifting back to their shared past. By the way, Uncle Dung, I've been wondering since I saw you, after our time on the construction site, what have you been up to? I noticed you've changed a lot since those days. Back then, we were so carefree working together, laughing through the long hours. Would you mind sharing what's happened since? Uncle Dung chuckled, a hint of pride in his voice as he leaned back, his hands resting comfortably on the table. Of course I'll tell you. After working with you, I took a break for a while. Then I started taking on a few projects here and there. And eventually, I set up my own company. Jack's eyes widened, a genuine smile spreading across his face. That's amazing, Uncle. I'm really happy for you. When I saw you, I was surprised by how much you've changed, not in a bad way, of course. But that's not why I support you being with my mom. It's because I've known you for so long, and I know the kind of person you are. She deserves happiness, and I believe you can give her that. Uncle Dung nodded thoughtfully, his voice tinged with reflection. At my age, I'm not young anymore, Jack. I just want to find someone to share my life with as I grow older. Jack's expression softened, a sense of peace settling over him. Hearing you say that puts my mind at ease, Uncle. Well, I should get going. I have some things to take care of. But thank you for this talk. Uncle Dung waved him off with a smile. Take care, Jack. See you soon. As Jack stepped outside, the cafe's chatter fading behind him, Uncle Dung sat back, a thoughtful look on his face. Jack's still young, but he thinks so carefully about everything, he murmured to himself. I won't let him down. Now I need to call Loy and arrange to meet her, to tell her how I feel. He pulled out his phone and dialed, his voice gentle but eager. Loy, are you free? I'd like to talk to you about something. I'll come pick you up. I'll send you my location, all right? A soft voice replied through the line. Sure, that sounds good. Outside, the village hummed with life, the cafe a quiet witness to the emotional currents that had just unfolded within its walls, setting the stage for what was to come. The afternoon sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a warm, golden hue across the same quaint cafe where Jack had met Uncle Dung earlier that day. The scent of coffee still lingered in the air, now mingling with the earthy aroma drifting in from a nearby farm visible through the window. Ducks waddled near a small pond, their quacks blending with the rustle of leaves. Jack returned, his boots still dusted with the dirt of the village paths, and spotted Uncle Dung already seated at their usual table. "Good afternoon, Uncle," he greeted, pulling out a chair. "Afternoon, Jack. Come sit down," Uncle Dung replied, his voice warm and inviting. Jack called out to the waiter with a familiar ease, "I'll have a salted coffee, please." The waiter nodded. "Right away." Jack glanced around, his eyes lingering on the walls adorned with rural scenes, fields stretching endlessly, workers in hard hats, and bridges over rivers, memories of his past life with Uncle Dung flickering through his mind. "Have you been waiting long, Uncle?" he asked, settling into his seat. "Not too long," Uncle Dung answered, his tone relaxed as he sipped his water. "I got here a little while ago, just taking a breather." Jack nodded, the familiarity of the setting putting him at ease. "So, what's on your mind today? Why did you ask me to come back?" Uncle Dung's expression turned earnest, his hands resting on the table as he leaned forward. "I wanted to talk to you again, Jack. There's something important I need to share." Jack's curiosity piqued, he leaned in, his voice encouraging. "Please go ahead, Uncle." Uncle Dung began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "You and I worked together on the construction site years ago, so you know who I am. Over time I had the chance to meet your mother, by chance of course, and I've come to care for her deeply. She's an incredible woman, Jack. And I wanted to be honest with you about my feelings." The confession hit Jack like a gentle wave, stirring a mix of surprise and warmth in his chest. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, the cafe's ambient noise fading into the background as he focused on the man before him. "Uncle Dung," he began, his voice soft but firm, "I'm really surprised to hear this again, but I'm also glad. We've known each other for years, worked together, and I've always respected you. My mom, she's an amazing woman. She raised me through so many struggles, and I've always cherished her for that." He paused, his thoughts drifting to his mother's tireless efforts, the late nights she'd spent sewing to make ends meet, the way she'd always put him first. "I've always hoped she'd find someone to share her life with, especially now that she's not as young as she used to be. I want her to find happiness, a companion for her later years. So I have no objections to what you're saying. I support you and my mom being together. But it's her decision in the end, of course." Uncle Dung's face softened, a wave of relief washing over him. "Thank you, Jack. I understand what I need to do now." Jack's voice grew more earnest, his hands clasped on the table. "Uncle, you know how hard my mom and I have worked to get to where we are. She's everything to me, you understand that, right? All I want is for her to find someone who will care for her as she grows older. I support you, so please don't worry too much." Uncle Dung smiled, his gratitude evident. "I'm truly thankful, Jack." Jack gestured to the coffee that had just arrived. "Let's drink, Uncle." "You too," Uncle Dung replied, raising his glass. As they sipped, Jack's curiosity returned, his mind drifting to their shared past. "By the way, Uncle, I've been wondering, after our time on the construction site, what have you been up to? I noticed you've changed a lot since then." Uncle Dung chuckled, a hint of pride in his voice. "After working with you, I took a break for a while. Then I started taking on some projects, and eventually, I set up my own company." Jack's eyes lit up. That's incredible, Uncle. I'm so happy for you. I was surprised to see how much you've changed, but that's not why I support you with my mom. It's because I've known you for so long, and I know you're a good man. She deserves happiness. Uncle Dung nodded thoughtfully. At my age, I just want someone to share my life with as I grow older. Jack smiled, a sense of peace settling over him. That makes me feel better, Uncle. I should get going. I have some things to take care of. Uncle Dung waved him off. Take care, Jack. As Jack stepped outside, Uncle Dung thought to himself, Jack's young, but he thinks so carefully. I won't let him down. I need to call Loy. He dialed, his voice gentle. Loy, are you free? I'd like to talk. I'll pick you up. I'll send my location. At her modest home, Loy was tending to her garden, the ducks quacking near a small pond, their feathers glinting in the sunlight. She smiled at her dog Vang, who bounded toward her. What are you up to, little one? Come here, let me see. We're out of feed. I'll ask Jack to pick some up later. She noticed the wilted flowers, their petals scattered by the recent rain. The flowers were so beautiful, but the rain ruined them. I'll gather some grass for the fish, then buy a melon to bring to Jack's. I hope Mom and Uncle Dung find happiness together. She called her mother. Mom, are you coming back soon? Call me when you do. Or if you're out, just let me know when you're done so I can cook dinner. Then she visited Jack's home, where he greeted her warmly. Auntie, Uncle Dong here. Come in. Uncle Dong, a sturdy man with a kind face, asked, Where's your mom? She's out, Uncle, Jack replied. I want to build a house for my youngest. He's getting married. I heard you're a great engineer, Jack. Can you design it? Jack hesitated. I've been out of the field for a while, Uncle, but I'll think about it and let you know. Uncle Dong left, hopeful as Jack mused. Maybe I'm meant to return to engineering after all. The early morning light crept over the village at 5:57 a.m. +07 on Sunday, May 18, 2025, casting a soft glow across the winding dirt paths and the distant hum of a motorbike engine breaking the silence. Jack rode steadily toward the cafe where Uncle Dung had planned to meet Loy, his heart a mix of anticipation and hope. The air was cool, carrying the scent of dew-kissed grass and the faint quacking of ducks from a nearby pond, their silhouettes visible against the misty horizon. He parked his bike outside, the familiar wooden facade of the cafe welcoming him as he stepped inside. Spotting Tien already seated with a cup of tea, her bright smile a beacon in the dim light. Morning, Tien, Jack greeted, sliding into the chair across from her. Morning, Jack. I figured I'd wait here since you mentioned Uncle Dung might need us today, she replied, her voice warm. Jack nodded, glancing toward the corner where Uncle Dung and Loy sat, a bouquet of fresh flowers resting on the table between them, a silent symbol of his intentions. I talked to Uncle Dung yesterday, Jack began, his voice low. He's planning to confess to Mom today. I told him I support them, but I'm nervous about how she'll respond. Tien squeezed his hand reassuringly. She's strong, Jack. And from what I've seen, she cares about him too. Across the room, Uncle Dung leaned forward, his hands trembling slightly as he spoke to Loy, the morning light catching the lines of his weathered face. Loy, I've thought about this a lot. Over the past few months, I've come to care for you deeply. I'd like to be more than a friend. Will you let me be your partner? I know we're not young anymore and I don't want to waste time. I had a good wife once, but she's gone. Meeting you has given me a new purpose. Loy's eyes widened, her fingers tracing the edge of the table as she processed his words. The cafe buzzed softly around them, the clink of cups and distant chatter creating a cocoon of intimacy. She took a deep breath, her voice gentle but hesitant. Uncle Dung, I'm touched by your feelings. I've grown fond of you too, your kindness, the way you've helped me over the years. But I'm still worried about Jack. He's my son, and he hasn't started his own family yet. I need some time to think to make sure he's settled before I focus on myself. Uncle Dung nodded, his expression softening with understanding. I spoke with Jack, he supports us, Loy. He wants you to be happy. I'll wait for you as long as you need. Loy's gaze dropped, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty in her eyes. Jack's always been so caring. I'm not saying no, I just need time to be sure this is right for us. Just then Jack and Tien approached, their footsteps light on the wooden floor. Mom, Uncle, good to see you, Jack said, his voice steady but filled with emotion as he hugged Loy. She smiled, her eyes glistening. Jack, you brought Tien here? What's going on? Jack glanced at Uncle Dung, then back to his mother. I wanted to be here for this. Uncle Dung told me about his feelings yesterday, and I told him I support you both. I just want you to be happy, Mom. Loy's breath caught, her hand reaching for Jack's. You really mean that? Jack nodded firmly. Yes. You've given me everything. I want you to have someone to lean on now. Uncle Dung cleared his throat, his voice earnest. Loy, Jack's blessing means the world to me. I promise to care for you, to be there through whatever comes. Please give me a chance. Tien chimed in, her tone light but sincere. Auntie, I've seen how Uncle Dung looks out for you.